Welcome to Making Choices to Show Results, part of the Minnesota Board of Water and Soil Resources video series about the One Watershed, One Plan program. In this module, we will talk about the importance of using public resources wisely and strategically to address Minnesota's most pressing water needs. In the planning process, groups are going to be asked some tough questions about water management, like what's important and what do you want to do? This may seem simple and obvious, but it will involve the hard work of choosing. Here's why these conversations are so critical. In the Three Big Ideas module, we talked about the dual challenge faced by water resource managers in Minnesota. We're blessed to have funding from the Clean Water, Land, and Legacy Amendment, but needs still outweigh available funds. And as stewards of those funds, both at the state and local levels, we have a responsibility to show meaningful progress on addressing some, but not all, of those needs. There's a huge emphasis on accountability with the Clean Water Fund and a real need to show that these funds are making a difference. The concept of measurable outcomes refers to whether water resources are protected or improved. Are clean lakes staying clean? Are polluted waterways getting cleaned up? Is there enough clean drinking water for people, economic activity, and ecosystems? These questions go beyond the number of projects and programs that get implemented to the important questions people care about. Of course, this isn't only about legacy funds. Any public entity must make thoughtful and careful decisions about how to spend public dollars. The need to show meaningful progress is an important theme in the One Watershed, One Plan program. You can't get far in a conversation about One Watershed, One Plan without hearing the PTM mantra. Let's review. Prioritize means strategically deploying resources to meet the most pressing needs based on watershed science and local opinions. Target is matching the right activity and specific location with the root cause of the problem in a priority area. And M is for measuring results. As we've discussed in previous modules, One Watershed, One Plan is a key piece of a big shift in Minnesota's approach to water management. One of the reasons we're making this shift is because we believe that tangible results are more likely when efforts are concentrated in priority areas. In the early days of the Legacy Amendment, Bowser tested this idea through the Targeted Watershed Demonstration Program, which was the predecessor to our current watershed-based implementation funding program. This graphic shows places in Minnesota where groups concentrated implementation efforts in small areas to move the needle and make a measurable change in water quality. And it works. The challenge is that making these measurable improvements involved large sums of money. Of course, we will only be able to do that in selected areas across the state. That's where prioritization in One Watershed, One Plan comes in. Rather than continuing a competitive process, we are asking each of the state's 60 planning boundaries to identify their highest priority issues and places and resources where they will concentrate implementation in order to show measurable improvement in water quality or other priority issues. We want to challenge you to think differently about your plan. Imagine you are asked to address one high-value resource with a concentrated effort in the watershed you're working in. What would it be? Could you come up with a top 10 list of these types of issues and places and address one for each of the 10 years of your plan? One Watershed, One Plan is about getting conservation done on the ground. It's also about making good choices based in sound science. The Legacy Amendment has allowed the state to collect sufficient data to start making these decisions in every Minnesota watershed. The Advisory Committee will help the Policy Committee use data, along with local values, to determine watershed planning priorities and targeted actions. Data collected in the future will allow for comparisons of watershed health over time, which is how implementers will be able to show measurable results. In their plans, groups identify three main ways they will measure progress toward their goals based on implementation work. Monitoring data is the most direct and reliable way to measure changes in water resources. It's also the most expensive, and results may not be visible for a long time because watersheds are complex systems. Estimates use mathematical models to predict the results of implemented actions. They're less expensive than monitoring, but still can give good information about what's likely to be happening in the water. Counting actions that were implemented is the easiest way to measure, but it doesn't tell you much about the natural resources people care about. Let's look at how the concepts of prioritize, target, and measure play out in two examples from completed planning efforts. The first is from the Pine River watershed, which includes the city of Cross Lake and the Whitefish chain of lakes. There are 500 lakes in this watershed. Talk about needing to prioritize. The planning group used data about water quality trends, risk of future declines, and economic significance to narrow the list of 500 to 19 lakes. Within the drainage areas of the priority lakes, they then target the most appropriate actions. In the case of land protection, they used the criteria of location relative to water and already protected lands, as well as quality factors. For each watershed, the plan sets a measurable goal so the group can track progress and know when they can move on to other priorities. Here's another example from the Missouri River Basin in far southwest Minnesota. In this planning effort, the group developed a composite ranking for each of the 65 sub-watersheds based on factors of surface water, groundwater, local development and stewardship, fish and wildlife habitat, and the targeted implementation approach. The red areas indicate highest ranking places where work will get focused. The planning partnership used a mapping and analysis tool called PTM App, which targets specific locations for structural and non-structural best management practices based on landscape characteristics. The PTM App tool also predicts water quality improvements that will result if the items in the plan are successfully implemented. The One Watershed, One Plan process is about people connecting around water. By having important conversations about priorities, government groups with local citizens can ensure that public investments match public values and get results. Thank you for watching Making Choices to Show Results. Check out our other modules to learn more about the One Watershed, One Plan program.